Hey there, everyone. It's Jody Sutter of the Sutter Company. Welcome to another LinkedIn Live. And we've got a good one for you today on a topic that probably a lot of you is probably not the favorite of a lot of you, and that is marketing procurement. May not be our favorite topic, but it's really important. And I think it's an obstacle. It's something that a lot of agencies struggle with. In other words, how to deal with marketing procurement, especially if you have nurtured a client, if you've done everything right throughout the business development process, you've nurtured the client well, you've had a good pitch process, and then the client says, okay, we've got to get our procurement people involved to negotiate the final contract. And it feels like everything right that you did up to that point has the potential for all falling apart when someone comes in and potentially is going to look through and your pricing and your proposal and try to nickel and dime you. And a lot of times I feel like agencies don't spend enough time in figuring out how to manage those situations to their benefit. So today on LinkedIn Live, we have my friend Brett Colbert joining us, and I'm just going to read you a little bit quick bio. So Brett, I think, is arguably the most outspoken expert on agency procurement. He's been doing it for a long time. He's got experience both on the agency side as well on the marketing side. And some of the marketers he's worked for are, number one top global companies. They are Time Warner, Nestlé, and Anheuser-Busch InBev. So that gives him a well-rounded perspective that you don't always find. And he's also incredibly generous with his time and his insights. And I think, like me, we both want agencies. We want to create the best environment for agencies to succeed. And so I'm really looking forward to talking to him today. And thank you for joining us. Hey, Brett.
I love you. I liked your opening. I thought it was great.
Thank you. Well, thank you. And we're also neighbors now. Well, Brett and I are both lucky enough to live on the eastern end of Long Island, and we're not in the same room today, but we're not terribly far away from each other. So that's nice.
No, soon the weather will be nice, and I'll see you out on the paddleboard.
Yeah, soon. Actually, I saw people out there this weekend. A little bit too cold for me, but we're getting there. So, hey, I want to start out by asking you, first of all, was there anything about your background that the folks should know beyond how I described you?
No, it was great. Those that may or may not know me, they're going to know me now as the agency defender or the agency godfather.
Agency defender, yeah.
I think that's the role that I've taken on for the past couple of decades, plural. Yeah. I've been doing this marketing procurement thing since the early 2000s, dare I say, and check it out, we're 2023 right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And even so I'm going off script already. This happens all the time. So even when you were working on the client side, would you have called yourself an agency defender? Because you weren't necessarily easy on agencies.
No, I wasn't necessarily easy on agencies, but interestingly enough, agencies never took the time to actually get to know me and get to know how I was motivated, how I was measured, what my targets were. I was an open book. The thing is that I moved from the agency space to the client side marketing procurement space because of the role that I had at the agency. So I was leading media for some of the largest entertainment brands, and then went to go work for one of the largest entertainment brands because I was their agency.
All right.
So they understood that I knew how agencies were built, how they were servicing clients, and how they staffed. But the thing is that most agencies never actually ask, wait, why are you in the room? And more so, how do we work with you, and how can you help us with the onboard process, with getting additional visibility, business opportunity, etc. I always maintain that I want to protect agencies. I want to make it better not only for marketers, but also for agencies themselves. Still to this very day, there is a preconceived notion in terms of what marketing procurement's role is as it pertains to working with agencies. Your initial introduction spoke about that the scope has been awarded and they've almost agreed upon cost. And here, let me introduce you to procurement. Right. Where's procurement been all along during those discussions, during the dating process?
So where have they been? Is it that agencies put blinders on and choose not to think about it until it's like sort of too late to really be strategic about it, or do the clients, do the brand leaders or marketing leaders, do they also, on the client side, are they also partially to blame for maybe leaving procurement out?
There's a little bit of both. The thing is that if you have a subject matter expertise, Jody, within marketing, you've earned your seat at the table. And early engagement, both from the agency and procurement, are the largest challenges that still keep us to this very day having these conversations.
Yeah.
It was interesting. And by the way, there is a conference that's happening next week in Phoenix, Arizona, sponsored by the ANA, the Association of National Advertisers. It's the largest gathering in the US of marketing, procurement, and agency financial executives. For all of our BD or growth officers that are listening to this, if you can get a ticket and go, it's open to all. It is the largest breeding ground for business development, relationship building out of all the conferences that happen in the US.
Even more than ANA Masters of Marketing, which I always found a bit tough, but
because it is so large. The thing is that if you understand the people that are attending, what it is that they need to provide value to their businesses and to their marketing stakeholders, then you're going to be a better partner as an agency.
Yeah. Yeah.
So these are the people that are looking to what we call strategically source new innovation. New agency relationships are going to drive more top line growth.
Yeah.
They're not looking to do a cattle call to find the cheapest people who go to Phoenix. It's just not going to happen anymore.
So you think that if an agency shows up at the ANA conference, and this agency leader has some ideas about different ways to bring value to the relationship with a marketer, that the folks from the client side are going to be more than happy to sit down and talk and hear about those ideas.
They should. The thing is that their roles are to be an open book. If you think about the objectives of marketing procurement, there's three primary objectives. The first is the business objectives. The second is operational objectives. And third is their personal objectives.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And when you're meeting someone for the first time, it's almost like you're interviewing them. You want to understand how they're motivated, how they're measured, so you then can deliver against those targets. 2023, these questions are still not being asked.
Yeah.
And it's really an open book.
Interesting. Do you also think, so if an agency were going to start to ask those questions, this is a pretty broad question for you, but what would be the best way for an agency, especially a smaller agency, to start developing a relationship with the procurement officers of the companies that they want to work with?
Sure. Ask them what they're looking for. Are they looking for best-in-class service? Are they looking for the lowest price? Or are they looking for the best return on their investment? And if the procurement person can answer those questions with honesty, then they know how to invite them into the conversation.
Yeah. What about, because I find sometimes I think you're really an exceptional procurement professional because you are so open to that type of engagement. I actually, for a while, I was really lucky. So hopefully you folks who are listening to this, if you're a smaller agency, you may not be that familiar with the ANA or the Association of National Advertisers, right? I think I got the full name right.
Yeah, reach out to us on LinkedIn. We'll tell you whatever it is that you want to know.
But years ago, we were a services organization, but somehow our CEO got us an ANA membership. And so I got myself on a couple of panels, or not panels, what do you call them? Committees. And one of them was the procurement committee. And it was fascinating because what I saw was there were some people that were like you, but I will also admit, going back probably more than 10 years ago, there's some people like you, but there were also a lot of procurement officers who just felt like they didn't want to take calls from agencies. No. They just wanted to do their job.
No, sadly, there's more that are unlike us than like us.
Yeah.
The survey that I referenced in 2010 basically stated that people that serve as the function of marketing procurement did not have subject matter expertise, came from another area within procurement that did not at all pertain to marketing, and they didn't have trust from both the marketers and the agencies.
That was 10 years ago.
10 years ago. Fast forward 10 years to 2022. What they then surveyed was the relationship between marketing and procurement is better. The relationship between procurement and the agency still sucks.
Yeah.
Why do we think that is?
Yeah, you're right. Unfortunately, if we had to make a snap judgment, it probably would be that the agencies are not doing the work that they need to do to build a relationship with procurement.
And not only that, is that they don't know how to easily quantify the value that they bring
That,
to the business.
yeah,
And it's really not difficult to do. They feel that every request from procurement is mandated. They feel like procurement is serving as a blunt object within the discussion of compensation. And
yeah.
that's not the case, to be quite honest.
Hmm.
The thing is, we think about this within marketing procurement, the category itself is so subjective because what we're doing is that we're investing in creativity, we're investing in performance to
Right.
drive pipeline growth. Question that is do you want to buy more to get more, or do you want to spend less to get less?
Is
And we
that what
still
you think it ultimately comes down to?
and we're still existing in the perception that spend less to get less.
Hmm.
And not only are we not taking a look at the infrastructure of our organizations to see where we have opportunities to invest in better partnerships that are going to deliver or over deliver targets, but oftentimes we're not even sharing those targets.
Yeah.
So it comes down to really effective communication. If I do have to be engaged with a procurement professional, I'm going to invite them to my party as quickly as possible. And I'm
Yeah.
going to ask them the specific questions. How are you measured? And do you share accountability and targets with the marketing people, of which are my day-to-day clients?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you own the scope of work? Do you own the P&L? How are you participating in the budget? And if you're asking me to reduce the value of what it is that we're proposing based on what the business objectives are, how is that going to impact you? How's that going to impact marketing?
So let's talk about the value. So there's a lot of ways that you can quantify value, but having said that, it's also not always that easy, or maybe just, again, agencies are not oriented to do that. I mean, one way to quantify value is our work. Our work as an agency is projected to increase X number sales by X number percent, or revenue. But there are probably other ways to quantify value. Any advice there on what an agency might want to proactively go out and suggest to a client?
Absolutely. I've got a golden goose chart that I used often that literally will lay out the metrics and how to quantify each and every one of them. So
Okay.
you think about this. Value is received by multiple stakeholders within the relationship.
Mhm.
Value to marketing may be a little bit different than value to procurement.
Yeah.
Procurement primarily focused on processes, synergies, and believe it or not, revenue generation. So if you were doing training and education tied to new technology, new stacks, what it may be, make sure that you bring that to procurement and let them know what the value of that is.
Right.
Above and all, there are two cost metrics that agencies still don't understand,
Hmm.
and we share them all the time. There's
Yeah.
cost reduction and cost avoidance. And understanding the difference between the two will help you succeed in how you are presenting your cost tied to value in every discussion with both the brand and procurement.
So maybe how do you define the difference between cost reduction and cost avoidance?
Very easily. So
Okay.
cost reduction is savings against a determined baseline budget, of which 99.9% of brands do not know what their budget is because it hasn't been approved yet.
So in other words, it would be, let's say I've got $100 to market my product, and I'm working with an agency who says, you know what, I can take that $100 and I can get you $99 worth of media for $100. I mean, that's
Yep.
oversimplification. So that's cost reduction.
Well,
But the
cost
problem is,
reduction is any reduction to the budget. So that would mean
okay,
$1 savings because the agency was able to deliver $100 worth of value at $99
okay.
without reducing anything within the scope of work. That's the easiest way that people go after cost reduction. Jody, let me tell you a secret. There is zero cost reduction that exists within marketing procurement. If that was the case, we would have surpassed a point of diminishing returns in the early 2000s when we were all asking for our 5, 10, and 15% savings.
Right.
Cost avoidance is actually a metric that can be measured. Originally proposed price versus agreed upon price, tied to more defined outputs and deliverables,
Hmm.
focusing more on the needs versus the wants, and aligning resources specifically to those outputs, not
Hmm.
outcomes, but outputs.
Hmm.
That is how we're going to determine cost avoidance. In addition to that, any additional training or education or best practice sharing amongst the agency to those brands, that's above and beyond the call of action within the scope of work. That's just being an awesome partner.
Right.
And all of that is hardly ever quantified. And we're speaking specifically within a creative AOR relationship or creative project relationship.
Yeah.
Media, that's a whole different animal. Because you
Yeah.
think about this, media is the world's largest commodity.
Yeah.
So your agency is outsourced procurement, period. So you don't
I'm sure
need
agencies love hearing that.
to question your media agency
Yeah.
on their effectiveness. What you need is an alignment of KPIs and cascade those KPIs to your agency and say, you know what? Here's what you sign up for. Let us know what we're missing or what we should be doing better.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to the new business process for a moment. So let's say I'm a CEO of a small agency, and I want to work with, but I work with, larger clients that even have procurement departments, because I think that some marketers don't. And I'm now making a commitment to market myself better to the procurement professionals there. What's the best way to go about it? Is it like should they like send an email, pick up the phone?
Oh. Yeah, the thing is that not only will they not get a return voicemail or email or LinkedIn message,
Yeah.
there's a lot of ghosting that happens within procurement, more so than ghosting on the marketing side, believe it or not.
Yeah. No,
So
I do, because
the
I've
thing
been
is,
there.
yeah, sadly. So the thing is that fish where the fish are. Attend conferences that they attend. Understand how they're motivated and identify who some of the thought leaders are within the space. There's a lot of reading that can be done. I'm going to recommend one.
Yeah.
So through the WFA website, there is a white paper that has been published called The Spring Project. It's a great piece talking about how they are trying to evolve not only the function, but make it more of a service.
Yeah.
Procurement as a service is a very different mindset than procurement as a function. Procurement as a service is bringing in talented people that are going to bring new thought, leadership, and innovation to the business that, again, is going to deliver to
Yeah.
a revenue target. And the fact that they're bringing this new thinking and these new agencies into the mix is constantly refreshing the business on the brand side. It's making the brand happier. It's educating the brand, and it's driving more profits.
Yeah.
On both sides.
Yeah. Yeah. I love I love this idea of going back a little bit about building relationships too, because really you're taking business, just to sort of mash our worlds together for a moment. You're taking best practices, business development best practices, which sure, I think that there's a place for that kind of more general, like spray and pray, outbound, that can work in some cases. But what you're really saying is what I tell my clients as well, is to start to build the relationships with the people that you ultimately want to work with, or build the relationships with those who can connect you with the people that you want to work with. And so, yeah, become a thought leader, I was even thinking as you're talking, maybe you also have somewhere, as you develop your messaging on your website as an agency might want to look at what's a procurement person going to think when they go to their website. Is it
Absolutely
mushy, or is there maybe even a separate place for marketing procurement? And like, here's how we provide value.
And there's a lot of things that marketing procurement takes a look at. One that is extremely important these days, and it's always been, is supplier diversity. So if you're a classified diversity supplier, if you're a certified diversity supplier, let them know this, because there's a lot of companies that have very aggressive targets tied to partnering with diverse suppliers that they cannot find and cannot cross the finish line.
Yeah. And by the way, I think I think agencies have started to get a lot better about that. By the way, also, just for anyone listening, I'm going to make sure that I get a link to that WFA white paper. We're going to do our best to do that, as well as, gosh, there's a couple of other things that I scrolled down here, as well as a couple of other things that we're referring to in this call, this talk, like the ANA conference, and gosh, there was something else. Anyway, so we refer to some really key things that I think agencies could really use. We'll make sure that there are links to them in the notes.
But let's make it really easy. So, how often do agencies actually invite procurement people to their house and let them experience their product or service?
Yeah, I think never, or
Yeah.
maybe a very, very small amount. I think here's the problem is that they if they did, I think I know we had talked about it earlier, is that they may if they decide they're going to invite them, they may not get that procurement person answering the invitation.
And the
So
thing is that persistence is key. Alternatively, what
yeah,
I've done so often is that I've held procurement roundtables where it's hosted by a neutral party.
yeah,
Oftentimes, it can be an agency, and they talk about the wins and the
yeah,
opportunities. It's not a bitch fest. It does become a bit of a therapy session, but they then get to learn from one another as how to work best with agencies. And what happens as a result is that those that host these roundtables then are perceived and well recognized as advocates
yeah,
of procurement. Is that I'm investing because you're a part of our industry. And I'm investing because you could help me quite a bit and I can help you quite a bit. I just need to understand the definition of help
right, yeah,
because it is really no longer cost savings. Here's the thing is that anytime that you invest in a service, first question you're going to ask is how much does it cost? And that provider is going to hand over the cost to you. And you're automatically going to evaluate the cost in advance of what it is they're going to do for you or their expertise to help you solve that situation.
yeah,
Not service you, but actually deliver a solution to what it is that you're investing in.
hmm,
Still, 2023 is that the handing over of costs is forcing us to then enter environments where we have apples to apples comparisons that are not apples to apples.
yeah,
And as a result, we're negotiating our ways to the bottom.
yeah. You still
That
kind of having,
bottom that bottom redefines the new baseline of which all of our listeners and all of our friends, they're never going to be able to get back up.
yeah. So when you're working with because you work with agencies now, you're like me, you are a consultant for hire coach. I don't know if you would you call yourself a coach? Consultant.
Yeah, I do that too.
Yeah. So how do you tell your agencies, your clients to probably a little bit of what you're telling me now, but what tends to be your advice to agencies?
The thing is that pump the brakes. The thing is that the business will come, but let's understand
Mm,
what the business objectives are
yeah.
of all of the different stakeholders. And my favorite thing of the last couple of years is that cross the finish line on a small engagement to understand exactly what the infrastructure of the brand looks like and what their real business objectives and metrics are.
Cross the finish
Frankly,
line
here's a
on a
little
small engagement.
secret, get paid to learn about your clients.
Yeah.
And then if you're as amazing as everyone hopes that you are, you're never going to leave,
Yeah.
but you're going to be best suited to actually scope effectively for phase 1.5 or phase
Right.
2
Right.
of that project. So take that small project at a very high margin because you earned it. Go in and understand what the strategy is and then execute against it.
Yeah.
As
And
opposed
that's something that you're seeing is working with your clients.
it works all the time.
Yeah.
It works all the time. And the thing is that another little secret is that there are dollar thresholds that people can cross finish lines
That's right.
without having to be introduced to our friends in procurement. We're not being secretive. The
Yeah.
thing is that we're onboarding because there is a intentional need that work has to be
Yeah.
done now.
Yeah.
Many of our friends at the agencies will do the work and then get introduced to procurement midway or once the project is done to then start talking about the contract and
Right.
costs.
Yeah. Well, this goes back to something that I was also thinking about talking about like bringing procurement in an agency an agency. It also could behoove an agency to in the early stages of a relationship with a prospect to ask that prospect like when or how or if procurement will get involved. So don't wait to be told, oh, guess what, everything's going great except we've got to put your contract through. Like start out saying, great, how do you hire agencies? How do you hire agencies like that, us?
And what
How
is
is
the
procurement
entire
involved?
onboard process? Who do I need to engage with and
Right.
who do I need to make sure that I have aligned on my team to
Yeah.
have the most productive conversations because we need to go now.
Yeah, because a lot of times also I find that agencies don't take the side, don't always approach the marketer with the most empathetic viewpoint. So even the brand side or the marketing side, they're, the agencies want their business, but they don't necessarily want to roll up their sleeves and say, how can we help you make this as easy as possible to hire us?
Not every
What are the
agency.
obstacles that you're facing here?
Yep.
Everything from I don't have time to run this pitch to I've got to police procurement to my boss doesn't understand what it takes to run a campaign like this.
Yeah, and agencies prepare to be discredited. Sadly, when you have the conversation with procurement, so their tactic is to nullify value propositions, and their tactic is to
Well, what if they're good value propositions?
what's that?
What if they're good value propositions?
The thing is that they're still going to have a
Yeah.
blind ear to that because what they want to do is they want to focus on discrete units. And discrete units is the currency of which you still choose to provide to them.
Discrete units. So tell me a little bit more about what would be a discrete unit. I don't know, maybe everyone knows, but
Hourly rates and rate cards. Is that why do we continue to provide or hand over hourly rates and rate cards independent of an actual ask or independent of a collaborated and aligned brief with specific project deliverables within that brief? So the fact that we are doing that still to this very day gives a lot of business owners and a lot of independent agencies the perception that we're going to be on the preferred master vendor for client X, Y, and Z. There is no preferred vendor relationship. It doesn't exist. Thing is that marketers are going to continue to work with those agencies that keep their asses in their jobs or get them their next big job.
right.
And the preferred vendor roster is simply a way for those that are not providing value to the business necessarily by doing this. It's a benchmarking exercise.
Interesting. I probably should have thought more about that because and I've been through that and I've witnessed that really in-depth, very detailed processes to become a preferred vendor, and then nothing freaking happens. I actually had a client earlier this year. They're based in Toronto and they do a lot of events and sponsorship. And they actually have a really interesting value proposition on how they measure the value of sponsorship. But yeah, they had I won't say which, but it was actually a division of one of your former employers. But yeah, they went through a preferred vendor process and then they did their due diligence and reached out to all the heads of brand and got
It's sadly the same story. Thing is that the value that they bring to the table is that we have this entire database of vendors. It speaks nothing to the quality of their talent, speaks nothing to the business results that they've done for their clients, or it speaks nothing to where they want to evolve as a business. So it is a two-dimensional spreadsheet that is sent and say, consider working with these guys. However, if they only are compliant to a preferred vendor roster, it impedes innovation. They don't get people like you coming in to teach them about things that they need to know.
So that's one of the things I was going to ask. So if I were an agency and my potential client says, look, I'd love to work with you, but you have to become a preferred vendor. Going back to something else we we're talking about, a response might be, you know what, we don't do that because we found that it doesn't pay. It's not a good return of investment in our time. But what we will do is let's go to one of those starter projects. What can we do together that will allow you to get a yes or not have to seek approval from procurement?
Yeah, we're dating at this point. Is that the thing is that there's not much value to us becoming a preferred vendor because we like working with you, client Joe.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and move forward on the project scope of work. Do you have a project service agreement in place in lieu of the master service agreement because they're a very large company and we want to start working now? If you don't, let us send ours to you.
Yeah.
Which most agencies need to be equipped with, but aren't.
Yeah.
We're making it super easy to work together.
Yeah.
Because there's a need that we want to work together. So once we earn the relationship, once you love us as much as we love you, we're happy to talk about this preferred vendor agreement. But right now, we love working with you.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's something else I also talk to my clients about. You are vetting them as much as they're vetting you. Although it doesn't always feel like it because yes, they hold the purse strings, but yeah.
Well, that's the whole rationale as opposed to these small sprint projects is lift the hood and see if they're effed up as much as you thought they were, even though they say that they are not.
Oh my God, yeah.
because we've all
Um,
been in those experiences.
so this has happened again. I just want to let you know that we're at 30 minutes past the hour. And this happens all the time. It's like, whew, go time really flies. So before I let you go, though, I just want to see if we can have a short conversation about negotiation, because something that you told me, and maybe it's still the case, you described agencies negotiating with procurement as lambs to the slaughter.
Yeah.
And again, I hope I'm not giving away. I hope that wasn't like a personal, like offside comment that you made. But what what can agencies do to maybe not be such a lamb, but be a little bit more like a ram?
Yeah, be a quiet ram. Just do a
Quiet
lot of
ram.
listening. And the thing is that nothing is a mandate in
Nothing
terms
is.
of
I think that is the key. Nothing is a mandate. Just
nothing
because.
is a mandate. And the thing is that as you're engaging with procurement, it's your responsibility to engage with your brand leader at the same time to let them know conversations that are being had and questions that are being asked. And to
Yeah.
let them know that specific questions that are being asked is going to impact the quality or the output of what it is that we discussed. Are you cool with this?
Yeah.
And 100% of the time, they're going to say, no, I'm not cool with that. So I need you to get involved in the conversation when we all feel that it's appropriate to have a conversation. Thing, Jody, is that not many people have done this to me, but I do this to a lot of people. Is that how do you paralyze procurement within a negotiation?
Hmm.
You just say no.
Yeah.
How many of us say no?
Yeah. No. Well, they asked us, so we got to do it. It says that we have to.
And if we say no, has anyone lost a piece of business for saying no? Perhaps they walked away from it because it wasn't right.
Yeah.
But the word no begs the follow-up question, which is, well, why?
I was going to say another question that isn't asked enough. I remember learning how to negotiate when I worked years ago. Worked at RGA, and I was doing a project. I was bringing in a project for Nasdaq, and but it was part of. It was going to be like a bunch of like interactive kiosks in their new building in Times Square. And I was this like young business development person negotiating with a senior like project manager at Skanska, the global construction company. But he was really great because one of the things I learned from him is that he didn't bully me. He didn't say, well, this is in our contract. He'd say like, all right, let's read this paragraph together. And we would like go through. It's like, okay, so this means that, and this means that, this means that. And it demystified the language to the point where we could really say we understood. We may not have agreed with it, but we understood why that language was there, whether it was our language or his language. And then we could have a conversation about that. Why is that in there? What are you really, yeah, why do you, again, if I'm in the seat of an agency, take a simple thing that I find agencies often cave on. Why are you concerned about us marketing or promoting the work that we do with you?
And the thing is that that's valuable to an agency.
Yeah.
So that's something that people should be willing to provide if they're asking for any
Yeah.
type of cost concessions.
Yeah.
There's realities is that
Yeah.
sometimes big ideas exceed what the projected budgets were. We get all of that. But the thing is that we need to ask those questions up front. What is the budget?
Yeah.
And almost every procurement will say, I won't tell you the budget. I'm the first to tell you what the budget is. And colleagues like myself are the first to tell you what the budget is, not because the expectation is that the agency is going to say, okay, your budget's $1 million. We can do it for 999,999.
Yeah.
It's okay. So this is how we're going to manage the project based on
Yeah.
the investment that you have. And further, a good agency will let them know that that investment of the $1 million is only going to get you so much. But have you thought about investing it this way and this way and this way?
That's always like three choices. Potentially, you could say $1 million. Like, here's the other thing too. Well, yeah, give them. If you want to spend a little less, we could get away with doing it this way. Or if you really want to invest, we could really get you to this point. But here's the thing about budget. If they have $1 million, shouldn't an agency come in at 900 at $1 million, because the client, especially if that $1 million, if their $1 million solution gets them to the outcome the client wants, I don't know, why wouldn't you? And I think there's a lot of ways to solve a problem. So if they
Listen,
said,
it's
listen,
no
we only had
different than
500.
investing in real estate or investing with a financial advisor, is that you're going to invest to get the best opportunity to get the best return,
Yeah.
period. It's the
Yeah.
same thing, is that creative agencies, media agencies, we all exist within professional services.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, we are still okay with people questioning our cost structure. But let me ask you, the last time you went to your doctor or your lawyer and asked them what their hourly rate was?
Yeah.
Because the thing is, if you go to your doctor and ask them what the hourly rate was and then decide that that's too high and you're going to go to the cheaper doctor, God bless you.
Right.
Now, extreme example, but it is the same thing as pertaining to professional services.
Yeah. Yeah.
So effectively, you want to go back to these procurement people and say, cool, do you want a cheaper version of me?
Yeah.
No, you don't really want to say that because, again, we want to put aside all the conversations tied to cost. Investment and costs are a real thing. We need to make sure that we are getting the best value
Yeah.
at the best price with the best people.
I did some renovation on the house I own out here, and I ended up going with a construction company, a general contractor, because I don't have oodles of money. So I probably could have patched together different people of like the tile guy for this and the carpenter for that. And then I would have spent all my time managing them and not knowing what I was doing. So I realized that I knew I was glad to pay the management fee so that it would get done.
Yes.
And they would advise me on the decisions I should make. And luckily, it ended up being a good decision. But that's where, again, I think with agencies, the value often comes down to really simple things like how much time do you want with the senior people? How fast do you want? It's really about good, fast, cheap. How quickly do you want it? How important is this to you in terms of your stature in the general marketing sphere? What's going back to what we started talking about? What's important to you? How are you getting measured? What's going to get you your next job?
Good, fast, cheap is my favorite game to play ever. Is that if you
Yeah.
want it good, it's going to cost you more. If you want it fast, it's going to. I mean, like, there's all these different responses to it. So, going back to your
Yeah.
GC conversation about the home, is that if you had someone that you brought in to negotiate better deals with all of these subcontractors and then walk away after they negotiated those deals, what does that leave you with?
A big old house that still needs the work done.
Same exact thing with an agency,
Yeah.
that these procurement people are brought in as hire guns or professional negotiators who don't own the relationship with the agency and walk away after the agency agrees to their unilateral demands.
Yeah.
And then the marketer is left with the agency that has been beaten up and has probably reduced either the size of the prize, the cost, or the resources that are being engaged, and then has to be accountable to explain why they are under delivering an expectation. Because your colleague told me that I had to do that, who's no longer a part of this discussion.
Interesting. Yeah. The other thing I say to agencies too is that you're never going to have as much power as you do at that point where your direct client says, we really want to work with you. Now we got to negotiate the master services agreement. So yeah, the agency is like, well, I don't want to lose this deal. And of course, I don't want them to either. But they sometimes forget, I think, that the client has just invested all this time in this big pitch. Maybe it could be months long and lots of money and time. And so, yeah, just because you're pushing back on some key terms doesn't mean it actually means you might have a better relationship.
Very much so. Don't denigrate our value, because
Yeah.
the thing is that it's happening every day, and we're trying to negotiate against the shitty deals that people have agreed to. That it has lowered the baseline of all of our talent.
Yeah.
All of our talent. It's an interesting time because the thing is that we've got resources and technology that didn't exist even the time when they did these ANA surveys. So if we're trying to benchmark resources or projects or cost,
Yeah.
we can't do that because the actual service itself has not been provided.
Yeah.
And with all of the people that have been laid off from the tech industry who came arguably from the agency into the tech industry, they're trying to get back into the agency world at the tech salaries that they were compensated. Do you think procurement's going to pay that?
Well, maybe they should if they're really good, but I don't want to end on a downer note. But I think that we can make this all better. We, as a collective industry, can make this all better by well, everyone just has to take our advice, right? So engage procurement through your marketing contacts. Don't be afraid to push back if you've got a good reason. Ask why. and and have a conversation and understand the motivation of the people, not only the procurement people, but the marketing people, the brand people. Understand the motivations behind their activity as they're hiring you. But
Yeah, and remember their roles. They're professional negotiators, but they're human beings. So
yeah,
at any point during a conversation, if you're made to feel uncomfortable, let them know that you've been made to feel uncomfortable. That paralyzes them as well. Thing
interesting.
is that we were not intended to hurt people. We're intended to be aggressive. But the second that you let someone know, I don't care for the climate right now, it's too elevated. I'd like to pause and get back to you in a day or two when I can compose my
Yeah,
thoughts.
yeah,
That then lets them know that perhaps what they're asking for isn't relevant to the bigger ask by their marketing stakeholder. And Jody, one
yeah,
last thing is
yeah.
that if procurement is not adding value to both the marketer and to the agency, then what is the future of procurement? Because they are a cost center to the business.
Oh, that's an interesting point.
So marketing pays for an allocation of marketing procurement. And if they're not providing incremental value above and beyond anything tied to savings, which we demystified earlier,
Yeah,
they're no longer going to be around.
very interesting. Well, on that prophetic note, Brett,
I'm
it was
still smiling.
yeah, yeah. And it's funny. I feel like I should have you on again right after you get back from the A&A, but maybe I'll ping you to comment
We'll do
on our
some fun
streams,
stuff.
and I'll post in your LinkedIn streams, and I'll share them. And it could be really interesting to hear what you think of, if it's the same, continues to be the same old, or if something or someone, the next Brett Colbert walks on the
I'll tell
stage.
you what, when you're feeling stronger and better, we will have a session at Truth Training and do some kettlebells together.
Okay.
Or just grab a drink
Oh,
at
very
one of our
good.
local shops.
Just so everyone know, that's a local gym where sometimes Brett and I bump into each other. Yeah, not to talk about procurement, but to swing kettlebells. Listen, thank you so much. Hey, if people want to get in touch with you, because you do work with agencies, primarily with the Chameleon Collective, and so agencies can talk to you. How's the best way to reach you?
The easiest way is LinkedIn. I mean, listen,
Okay,
we're all connected in one way or another through LinkedIn. Reach out to me directly. It's interesting.
direct message on LinkedIn.
Yeah, message me on LinkedIn. And I also, Jody, to let you know, I actually donated a month of my time this month to diverse suppliers that are being ghosted by marketing procurement. So I'm providing coaching and mentoring to help them build their go-to-market strategy, not only with procurement, but with larger companies that normally would not even shake a wink at them.
That's awesome. Okay. Yes, I'll
So
definitely reach out.
this is to anyone who is listening as well. If you're
Mhm.
having those challenges, reach out. I want to help.
Yeah,
Jody and I want to help.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
please.
All right, cool. Brett, thank you so much.